everybody, and welcome to Happy Hour with Maestro Tim. I am your host, Maestro Tim, and today I have one of my BFFs with me. He's the music director of the Tuscaloosa Symphony, of the Newport Symphony, and also the Colorado Ballet, and he knows where all the bodies are buried because he and I went to school and where all this entire insanity called conducting began. Please welcome Maestro Adam Flatt. Adam, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
I wish I could say the same. So what are we drinking?
Well, this is a typical Hankiewicz BYOB situation. So I am in Denver, Colorado in my house. And so this is from a tiny distillery in Elizabeth, Colorado called Cask House Whiskey. And this is called Cask House Triple Oak. It's a bourbon finished in a rye barrel.
Oh, nice.
And it does have a finish. You get this little extra thing right at the end of your sip that's really very interesting. So I like it a lot.
Right. Well, what I'm drinking is sort of reminds me of you. I'm not allowed to endorse things online, but in this case,
so you're drinking water.
No, I can make an exception because most people in America can't read this. But I've actually gone to the great lengths of having it translated, and I think it translates as famous grouse. So I'm thinking, the censors at Facebook, I'll be having fun with this one right about now. But, I just remember we always were drinking famous grouse, scotch. And so I've since graduated from that. But so in your honor, here's to you, Adam. Cheers. So the next thing I want to make sure we're doing everything fine is we were talking offline about the difficulty and the sometimes monotony of endless Zoom meetings. So I want to make sure that you're wearing pants. So, if you're willing to play this, on the count of three, I want us both to stand up and prove that we are actually fully clothed. Are you ready for that?
I have nothing to hide.
Are you sure? Because you can pull out right now, so to speak, if you want. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
1, 2. Are you sure? Okay.
I'm sure.
1, 2, 3. All right. Yep. Good. All right. We're kosher and legal. So offline, you said, was there really a story about you and wearing pants during a Zoom meeting? I
live with young children. Things are falling over, or being tipped over all the time. So I've never risked it. Mm-hmm. I've never risked it because I know something could happen and this device could get tipped over and then I'd be found out. So, yeah. And typically I do wear pants anyway.
Good for you. Good for you. That's a high bar for a conductor,
It is, yeah.
So, I was laughing like hell. So Adam's my best friend. And so we were just catching up before we went live. And you were talking about this New York, this from the New York Times, this article about what? Tell us a little bit about that.
Late June, sort of June 28th-ish. I was just looking at it again today. How are conductors coping with the pandemic? And of course, they were interviewing several kind of august and famous conductors who were trying out new pastry recipes and returning to their roots on the cello and taking Russian lessons. And we had a good laugh over that, Tim and I, because Tim and I, pandemic for us is about 5 Zoom meetings a day. How do you do children's concerts for children who are at home over Zoom? How do you do your board's strategic plan during the pandemic? How do you curate your online streaming offerings, with dynamic demand pricing and so forth? And it's nothing like trying out recipes and returning to our roots at the cello, right, Tim?
Well, that's right. Although my yoga has improved, I can actually, I've gotten fatter over the pandemic, and when I look at my feet, they seem to be farther and farther away. I don't know it's a physics thing, I guess. But, so you opened up the discussion about trying to do meetings by Zoom. You are the music director of 2 orchestras.
Yeah.
Newport and Tuscaloosa. Every orchestra has a different personality, has a different context. Are both your orchestras dealing with the pandemic the exact same way, or theme and variations? Is one in hibernation? I mean, so how have you attacked two orchestras in this time?
Pretty different, actually. And you're right, every orchestra's got a different culture. My orchestras are, what we call per service orchestras. They're regional orchestras that serve, cities that are kind of smaller cities. And in the case of Newport, Oregon, it's a very remote city. So this is the perfect storm for us because our musicians, they come from the metropolitan areas largely, Portland and Eugene, Oregon. They drive for hours to come over to this little town on the central Oregon coast to play for a town of just under 10,000 people. So it's marvelous. I mean, it's a marvelous community, marvelous orchestra, but they are housed locally, so that's out. And our venue, which is a municipal auditorium, their solution or their temporary solution was to fire everybody and lock the door. So we were able to stream a couple of things in there before they did that. But now we're innovating where it's not a town rich with venues, and it's not a place where we can invite people because we can't house them right now either. So, but we're working around it, and we're going to record them in different cities, because that's what we can do right now. And I've also invented a series called Musician Living Room, where one musician invites people, just like this, a ticketed event where they explain all things to do with their craft on their instrument. We started with a percussionist who has a vast collection of instruments, including Asian and African instruments and stuff. It was really interesting and fun. So down in Alabama, in Tuscaloosa, it's a little different. The venues are accessible and the musicians are around, and so we're able to put together. Just yesterday, I was in my Zoom sweater hosting a chamber music concert online with quintets and septets from the orchestra playing chamber music for a ticketed audience. But we had a half-hour sort of happy hour, kind of like this,
right,
before the music. And so, cultures are different. Also, the regional cultures around quarantine are different. And Oregon is, man, it is buttoned down like a bank safe. Mm-hmm. And Alabama's a little freer with allowing people feel freer to get together and so forth.
So are these chamber things, is there a live audience, or is it just streamed?
So we have pre-recorded the music, so we can edit in different camera angles and stuff like that. So we get together live with a glass of wine and then play the concert. So it is live recorded, you might say. It's a watch party is what it is.
Yeah. So I've been dying to ask you this question because it has nothing to do with the pandemic. But, in this area, Iowa Hawkeyes are king. Football is king.
Yeah.
So what's it like actually living in a community with a winning football team? But no, in all seriousness, I mean, have you had, obviously you have to schedule around Crimson Tide,
Sure.
How difficult is that managing an orchestra in a town like that?
Well, I mean, it's in the bloodstream. Absolutely. I mean, even there are some really high-end restaurants in Tuscaloosa, very, very fine places. And even they have football team pictures up, you know what I mean? It's just everywhere. So, the Tuscaloosa Symphony Orchestra has been playing on Monday nights for 30 years, and that's what works there. So we rehearse, around that, and we play on Monday nights, and there's almost never a conflict with anything else around town, certainly a sporting event that people want to go to. So works out that way.
See, that is a cultural thing, because I did not know that. And hearing that you actually perform on Mondays actually just blows me away. And that's just expected. That's what they do.
And we do draw some of our people and a lot of our subs from Birmingham, of course, but even New Orleans, Memphis, big cities regionally, and nobody's got a conflict on Monday.
Yeah.
nights,
Yeah. So, I mean, truth or dare here. No, truth. Does Nick Saban give to the orchestra?
Nick has not come to the orchestra. His wife was a music major.
Really?
And so we're kind of working on her. We would like to have some contact with her, but certainly I know people who know Nick. That's about as close as I've gotten myself.
Right. Yeah. Hey, I'm going to go into our chat room to see if anybody's actually watching this nonsense that we're doing here.
Okay.
Oh, Darren, I'm probably going to need your help. Either no one is commenting or I can't see the comments. So anyway, I'm looking at our live feed and where comments normally are. Well, hopefully people are commenting. So perhaps I'll get this fixed in real time. Back to Adam. So you were laughing about your Zoom sweater.
Yeah.
I actually laugh about this because I call it the Maestro uniform. And I remember when we were both students, we would go to some of these conducting seminars and stuff like that, and you would walk into a room and everybody's wearing a turtleneck.
Yeah. It's the way of saying, it's the conductor wannabe outfit. The irony is, it's my Zoom sweater, and I love to wear it around the house, but I would actually never wear it to conduct in, just for that reason.
I almost feel guilty when I put it on because I love turtlenecks. I'm going, This is like instant pretension.
I have a giraffe neck, so I'm cold all the time. So I like to wear it, but no, in front of the orchestra, I just wear a shirt.
And do you wear pants?
What have you heard?
So I want to share with the audience one of our student experiences that I don't think people actually believe actually happened. So we had our professor's name is Imre Palo, and he had just joined on faculty at Indiana University, and he was doing an opera production. He was conducting the opera. What was it? Meistersinger? Yeah.
Meistersinger, yeah.
It was Meistersinger. Now, for those of you who don't know about Meistersinger, it's a fabulous opera, and I mean this as a compliment. I mean, it's a 5-hour opera that is so good it only seems like 3. Unlike Parsifal, which is 4-hour opera that seems like 10. So
6, yeah.
So we thought, hey, let's just go visit him, and he invited us to hang out and watch him work. I mean, that is gold for a conducting student, And I remember you had some things to do, so I went on ahead, and this was before Google and smartphones, and so I actually had to take a AAA magazine and try and find us a hotel that we could afford. And in the AAA book, it looked like, it looked close to downtown. I said, oh, sure. So I booked us a room, and then I went on Greyhound, because in Canada, Greyhound was actually a very decent mode of transportation. I had no idea what Greyhound meant in the United States. So I get onto this bus, and I'm sitting next to somebody with peanut butter and crackers, kind of constantly offering me something to eat. I'm like, well, thanks, no. And then I get downtown, and the first thing I have to do, I have to take the train, and there is a police line around where I need to go. And finally, I find the detour, and I get to the train I need. So I get to the train, and I thought that was the end stop. No. We then had to pick up the bus that went on for another 2 hours before we got to this dive of a hotel. Now, this is where you come in, because the day I had to pick you up, but you came in about maybe a week later or a couple days later.
Yeah.
And the day I had to pick you up, I leave the hotel, and in the parking lot, swear to God, is a burning car. A burning car. So I pick you up at the bus. You took the bus, didn't you?
I took the Greyhound. Yep.
Okay, great. You're on, baby. Now, from your point of view, what happened?
Well, let's see. I remember the Greyhound ride. I remember a guy with really big hair in the Greyhound. And what was that? Like an hour and a half commute to get from that hotel into the city center, something like that. Buses and transfers and.
I guess that on AAA, old AAA magazines, that is 3.5 hours, I guess.
And I remember Imre's hotel was really nice.
It was.
Downtown.
Yeah.
And the opera was gorgeous. Tim and I went to Indiana University, which has it's like a big opera machine. So we all got kind of seduced by that and thought, oh, we're going to be opera conductors, you know. And anyway, so listening to him work with these singers and stuff was wonderful, but this commute took forever. And I remember a late night people in the hallway in this hotel. You remember that, Tim, in the middle of the night?
But Adam, you're skipping the best part.
Oh, okay.
And you have to be careful about how because we get off the bus.
Yeah.
We're the only two white guys there. Everybody was super friendly to us.
Oh, yeah.
And they were asking what we were doing there.
Yeah. What brings you to town?
Yeah. And we were like really scared to like admit that we're here for the opera. You know, I basically should have said, and here's my significant other. But as you and I were looking at each other, we were stumbling on how we were gonna like explain to them what we're doing in town. Luckily, a wonderful gentleman came to our rescue, and he actually assumed we were there for.
I'm sorry, Steve, you were cutting out there. What?
He assumed we were there for the women.
To meet people.
To meet people, right? So we get on the bus to the hotel room. And we're in the back, and meanwhile, we're at the back of the bus, and one guy's trying to sell me his watch. We're in the back of the bus. Okay, now we get to the hotel room. Okay.
Okay,
there you go.
Yes, so I don't remember if it was that first night, but we were there for what, better part of a week probably, right?
We lived on bologna sandwiches.
There wasn't any place to go around that hotel. It was, I mean, if you didn't have a car, there was no place to eat, or I don't think we even called in for a pizza or anything. We just ate bologna and yeah.
To this day, I still like Wonder Bread, just for the record.
I remember watching Dragnet on TV. And do you remember Rachel?
God, yes, please.
Okay. Well, so one of these nights in about, I don't know, probably 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, we heard this pounding. At first, we thought that was on our door, but we had enough sense not to go open up the door. Then realized it was somebody pounding on the next door in this hotel, a man. And we got to hear for quite a long time, Tim, we got to hear the same kind of thing, like in a loop, this guy going, Rachel, come on, open the door, Rachel. Rachel, why don't you come on home? Come on home, Rachel. Rachel, let me in so we can talk. Come on, Rachel.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you know, my eyes are like blink, 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 and I'm thinking, I wonder if Adam's awake. Can you hear this? And I'm not saying a damn word.
Come on home, Rachel. So I'm actually remembering more about that than about the Meistersinger, but
how could you not? And then we went on either the day after or one of the days we were commuting back to downtown. We were both dressed really well, dressed in a suit and tie.
Yeah.
And there was some bag lady on the train. Do you remember that? Do you remember her?
I don't remember that part.
When
No.
she stood up and said, FBI, FBI. Did that not happen while you were there?
Yeah, that's ringing a bell.
Yeah. You see, education doesn't necessarily have to happen at the highest institutions of our country.
We learned about all kinds of stuff there. Yeah.
Let's see if I can actually figure out how to work these the chat room. Oh yes, we do have comments. Kathy Varney, too funny. What are you drinking, Kathy? Kurt Wasco, you know, and right back at you, baby. So I got to tell you, I'll tell you this joke after we're off the air. What you know means. So anyway. By the way, for those of you who are logging in, there's about a 20-second delay or so. So when I'm looking at a couple comments, I always find that when I review the comments after a broadcast, I realize I've missed about 2/3 or more of people's questions. So it's not.
Well, you're not the sharpest knife in the drawer, are you?
Well, you know, especially when it comes to tech. Sauvignon Blanc, excellent choice. But you know what? I'm feeling like a genius. I don't know about you, Adam, but about 10, 12 years ago, I made a conscious decision not to join Facebook. There were more holes in security and privacy, and so. But that was the moment that I officially became old, because all these social platforms have just completely passed me by. But I'm reaping the benefits of it this particular year, because I mean, people have just gone completely nuts. So are you a Facebook guy? Are you a social media Twitterati kind of guy?
I'm not on Twitter, and I did join Facebook years ago, and
your hair looks fine. It's okay.
Thank you. Yeah. So what I've decided is that the way Facebook belongs in my life is for 1 hour on Sundays or less.
Yeah.
And 6 days without it. And sometimes I actually go. My sister wanted me to join Instagram, and I did, but I never look at it. So I guess I'm old too. And I'm really glad I'm not on Twitter. I think that's particularly in the last 4 years, let's say, been kind of a pain for a lot of. I don't know. It's kind of raised the stress level in our culture, I'd say.
I know, but I mean, I don't know about you, but early on in my career, I mean, there was a lot of pressure to be on Facebook, because it's without a doubt, it's a very powerful marketing tool.
It was a lot of fun at first, I gotta say. Yeah.
So we've talked about two of your orchestras. Let's talk about ballet. Before we actually get into how they're dealing with the pandemic, do you have any artistic say, or do they say we're doing this piece and march?
You know, I moved here for a different job to work with the Colorado Symphony, and then I became music director of the Colorado Ballet. And to be honest, I thought it might be sort of a placeholder job for me, a placeholder position. I really like Denver, and my wife and I were getting married around that time, and we said, well, here's a way to stay in Denver for a while, maybe. And the ballet had just gotten a new artistic director at that time, and turns out he and I really work well together. You know, good artistic partnership there. And so, because I say this because every year I've got guest directors coming in to mount different productions, and I oftentimes think, if that was the guy I was working with full time,
done,
out of here, you know.
Yeah.
But this guy, this man, Gil Boggs is his name, whom I work with here at Colorado Ballet, is great, and his musical values are very, very high, very, very high. So it's his baby, and ballet is a very authoritarian kind of artistic culture. But we get together like this a few times a year, and I say, Gil, we're doing all this beautiful 19th century stuff with tutus. Can we, let's look at Sacre du Printemps, the Rite of Spring. And he goes, I'll take it under advisement. 2 years later, we're doing 12 performances of the Rite of Spring, So I actually, he does listen, and we do some stuff like that. The other thing is, what goes on in that orchestra pit is my baby. Yeah. And he's made it clear that that artistic buck stops with me, and there's no point talking to him about anything in the pit. That's my thing.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean, it works out really nicely.
So we actually, I know a lot of my musicians are watching, so thanks for joining us. I got a really funny question, and you're going to hate me for asking this. So, did you miss the Nutcracker this year? And in a normal season, how many Nutcrackers would you normally perform?
Okay, so did I miss it in the sense of not doing it? Yeah, we missed it because it was canceled. And this year was the year for the rollout of the new $2 million production.
Wow.
So you know, it'll be this year, 2021, when we finally get to put it up. We do usually the company does 29 now of those.
Same
year?
Same personnel, or do you platoon them in and out of the pit?
Well, we have
a lot of nutcracking going on.
Yeah, I mean, our core orchestra play almost all of them. They're allowed to take, I think, the CBA allows for 4 nights off, something like that. So 1 weekend basically off. So I did kind of miss it. It's become kind of a period of 5 weeks during the year when I know I'm just going to be home. I'm going to go do a performance and come right home to my own house. And I like that. And I have a way of, I've kind of boxed it up so that I don't give it any thought the whole rest of the year. So by the time we get into it, it's kind of fun. I mean, by the end of the run, we're all tired and ready to let it go for another year. But it's beautiful. And
I think so. For our audience who doesn't know, it sounds like we're kind of dissing Nutcracker. Not true. It's great music. It's hard music.
It's hard music.
And it's turned into sort of like Chinese water torture when you have to perform it, 29 times?
It's a textbook of orchestration.
Yep.
Honestly, beautifully written music. And so if we had to play some piece of junk that many times, it would be different,
mutiny,
you know.
Mutiny. Yeah.
And you know, we have a number of different casts up on stage, and we have 7, 8 different choirs that come perform with us during the run. So that, you know, it's always interesting enough that there's always enough to manage that's new each night, that makes it feel fresh. And you know what? We all know that there's an idealist in everybody's heart, no matter how many times you've done your job. And so many people get exposed to classical music for the first time in their life through that.
Yeah.
You know, and so every night we feel some responsibility to some of those people.
But that music is still so. First of all, it's also a chop buster if you're a winter brass player, and it's just physically difficult to play. So even though you play it 29 times in one season, doesn't mean it's going to come back quickly for your musicians the next year. I mean, they have to like work it up again. So how many rehearsals do you end up using?
Well, it's a revival, right? And
yeah,
95% of the personnel remain from year to year. So we put it together on Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. We come in at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and do a complete run through. And what I do is I grab 15 minutes at the end of the first act and before the second act for actual musical rehearsal to fix little musical things. And then we go have lunch and we come back at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock and do a second complete run through, grab another 15, 20 minutes for orchestra rehearsal stuff. That's it. We're back up and running for that year.
Do you have the performance that night? Surely you're not doing a triple.
No. We never do triples. Yeah. So then it opens on Saturday and we'll go. People say, oh, nothing says Christmas like the Nutcracker. But for us, it's nothing says Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's like the Nutcracker.
Okay, let me go back to the chat room and see what's going on here.
Okay.
So Denny Redmond, he's a board member, also really a fine jazz musician, even though he hates Mozart. But I won't rub it in too badly. So the piece that what drives him batty is when Color My World every weekend. So as a gigger, having to play that was like his. Blaine Cattingham, our tubist and librarian. Rite of Spring is my favorite ballet rep. Yeah, your lips to God's ears, man. That's amazing. Jeanette, I see your comment out of context. You say, I've seen it at High V. Are we talking Nutcracker? And by the way, Jeanette, in your honor, I was thinking about you yesterday because I'm staying with a friend of mine, and he has this bottle of bourbon that we're trying to get rid of, quote unquote, get rid of. And we've been hitting the whiskey sours again. And that was all because of you. Adam, I got to tell you, the two things I can really boast as accomplishments this year is I make a great whiskey sour now, thanks to Jeanette, and a great martini, especially a Vesper martini.
Okay, so 4 weeks after this damn vaccine gets into my arm, I'm out there and I want to have one.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. You will love it, because actually for the longest time, when I was drinking my own martinis, it was like drinking lighter fluid. It was like, God, let's have another, and I'd tough it through. And every time I'd go to my favorite restaurants and order a martini, these things are like, God, it's so smooth. It's tasty. It's not burning my insides. It's like napalm. It's just, and of course, no one would tell me the secret, and the secret is dilution. Who knew? So adding just either letting the ice melt enough as you're stirring the cocktail, adding a little water just blooms it to the point where it's like, oh yeah.
How much do you like a little teeny bit of olive juice in there?
No, I'm not as dirty as you are. I
like that.
I'm a Puritan at heart. Yeah. How about you? Have you acquired new mixological skills during this year?
I gotta say I haven't. My wife discovered this elderberry liqueur, though, which is
I know. Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Oh, really?
No, I like the way she put it into this. I usually don't like champagne, but with champagne, it worked out kind of nicely for me, I think. I mean, once we enjoyed it on New Year's.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, there was something I was meaning to ask you about Facebook. You're a father. You've got 2 kids.
Yep.
So, yeah. Wow. Hold on the enthusiasm, man. Hold back. Again, I realize you love your kids, but come on.
What have we been talking? 15 minutes now? 10 minutes?
I haven't heard them.
It's amazing. Nobody's come in here yet. Yeah.
Oh, well, we're still not done. Plenty of time for that.
Yeah.
So social media, computer time, you look a lot younger than I do, but we're basically the same age. Technology was not a thing when we grew up. So how are you navigating as a parent, the whole social media time and because actually a computer is a tool as well as a toy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's going to have to change again. It's going to have to change back after the pandemic because it's, my son started back to school this week. Previously, this whole year, he's had 7 days of school. Other than that,
so when you say back to school in person or back to school?
In person.
Okay, what? Okay. So
he's in his, second week back in person now. Previously in the fall, they managed 7 days. They opened 9 weeks late. They got 7 days in and then shut down again.
Right.
So he spends all day doing school on the computer. He's 8, so I have to sit there with him. I'm basically repeating the 3rd grade. And then
how are you doing, by the way?
I'm learning a ton. So then, it's just kind of like a constant scourge. So we have to be kind of draconian about the video games and stuff like that. And, I crowbar him outside. We go play baseball, throw the ball around, play Frisbee for a couple hours. He has a great time. It's just he's not mature enough yet to know that he will have a great time. So it ends up being this big thing for me to get him out the door first. Oh, but boy, if I don't, he is, it's just not good for the kids. They're cranky if they don't get outside, get the sunshine, get all that stuff that people need.
Yeah. Wow. So what's new for you? What's going to be going on next year? If you look in your, I'm sure you've been having these conversations, looking into your crystal ball. With
Yeah.
what?
Basically, I'm programming completely normal seasons, starting in the fall. We're approaching guest artists, artists and repertoire, assuming full budget, etc. And I'm programming Plan B.
Yep.
In case of cancellation or in case of restrictions that limit the number of people I can have on stage or in the house. Yep. And in the house. So it's I feel very lucky to have 3 different jobs in different places, but sometimes I feel like for the same amount of concerts I would have with one big job, I have 3 times the meetings.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so right now I'm doing a kind of programming plus alternative programming for 2 different orchestras, and we're all hoping fervently to be back on stage. Though I got to say, I'm as lazy as they come, but I miss the music a lot right now.
So do I. I had a meeting with our. We have a COVID task force, and it was brought up something that I don't think we're really thinking hard enough about. I think we're all hoping, planning that next season is pretty much going to be a normal season. And I think for the most part it will. But with the rollout of the vaccine, it's been botched. But when the vaccine becomes more pervasive, there's going to be a weird transition probably that'll hit between August and November.
Exactly.
So you're going to have your older patrons probably vaccinated. Don't know what that means for your musicians. And so we were broaching the very uncomfortable topic about, so do you insist on proof of vaccination now? And that's either both for audience member or even musicians, because if we start with a normal season, that means we're pulling the trigger on rehearsing an orchestra that's not socially distanced.
Well, that's right. And another thing we don't know yet is how confident people will feel once they're vaccinated.
Right.
And especially our, a large part of our demographic in the hall. Are they going to feel confident once they are vaccinated? And so vaccine confidence, those articles I'm following very avidly in the news right now, because it's like life or death for us.
Yeah. Did you have any pandemic projects that you've been, people always say, if I had time, I'd learn Russian, or maybe yoga, or, revisit my cello. But we've had time. So what have you been doing?
Well, I've gotten around to some big books, which is good. I, like you, I'm sure, Tim, when I'm in the thick of it, what I appreciate at home is the quiet, although my house isn't quiet with 2 little kids, but I mean, I don't seek out music as a sort of consumer at home normally. And I've changed. I'm interested in listening to music, learning.
Good for you. In many ways, I've lost that hunger. Can be an occupational hazard. Yeah.
Well, it's come back a little bit for me, learning some pieces I've never known before, and certainly there's a lot of energy in one of my in my groups, but especially one of them around belonging, inclusion, diversity, and so forth. And so I'm learning some repertoire by composers I'd never encountered before along those lines, which is great. And we have fixed some things that have been broken around the house for years.
So when you say we, does that mean Jen has fixed it, or have you hired somebody who's handy? Because I know you. Or how often have you had to fix the same thing?
Yeah, I have actually fixed a few things, and we have a guy who's great who helps us too. Here's another thing though. Usually I'm all over the place in the summers, but this summer I was home, and we had a garden like you wouldn't believe. We are still, what is this now? January? We still have squash. We still have squash to eat from last summer's garden.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I had a pandemic project that I was really passionate about, and I really sunk my teeth into it. And I even bragged about it to our audience. Started in March, and it was like full guns, and it sort of trickled down, and I'm still working on it. And I'm about 3/4 of the way through it. It's preparing parts for the St. Matthew Passion.
Okay.
So
are you gonna get to do the Passion?
One of these days before I die, I'm going to. Yeah.
Wow.
It was just one of those things that when the time is right and the funding and the resources come together, I can just pull it off the shelf and go, eat that. Yeah.
So did Tim buy a set of parts, or did the orchestra buy it?
Actually, Jill bought a set of parts. That's my wife. Hey, we're almost running out of time here, so I'm going to go back to the chat room to see what's going on. Jeanette Welch, yes, yay, whiskey sours and cachaça.
Ooh,
Talking about, yeah. Are you into Brazilian drinks there, Adam?
Sure.
You know, I'm so lousy at social media because I know there's a ton of comments and I only see 4 of them and I can't scroll up and down on them. So I'm seeing them only 4 at a time. So my apologies for not being able to.
I don't see any.
Well, yeah, but you know, you at least have an excuse. You're in Colorado. So anyhow, I'll get back to us. So, God, I miss you, Adam, because you and I were inseparable going to school. And did you ever think we were actually going to be conductors? I mean, we were studying it. We were at school. We were doing the right thing, I suppose. But did you really think we'd be doing what we're doing?
Tim, we didn't know. And, you know.
Well, I looked at you. I said, surely he can't.
Yeah.
I mean, really?
Right. The guy named Flatt, right?
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
But here's another thing, Tim. Think of, you talked about our trip to Cleveland with our new professor, Professor Paulo, to listen to him work on Meistersinger. He was our age, the age we are now back then.
I know. Wow. Yikes.
He seemed so august and distinguished.
Yeah, but now we know better. Yeah, exactly. So for any young conductor who's starting out right now, and they actually, several have tuned in the past, and I hope you have. So I hope you are right now. So the fact that you and I, 2 idiots hoping to become conductors, hanging out at Indiana together, what would you say? What would you say to somebody who wants to become a conductor, a young person? What kind of advice would you give to them?
Yeah. That's been one of my pandemic projects too, is I got to work with this Inside Music Academy with some conductors from all over the world who wanted to talk about this. So, for such a public profession, conducting, what you do all by yourself, there's so much that we do all by ourselves. It's sedentary and it's solitary, but it all comes down to being ready. And that means knowing the scores well, knowing what the composer wrote in the score. And so
let me
once you get but what I'm saying is, once you get going, the irony is you don't have any damn time to study.
Right.
So when you want to now is the time to learn scores. Wouldn't you say so too?
So yes, absolutely. Because I find it, here's the one advantage of getting older is, when you're doing a piece for the 3rd or 4th time, it comes back real quick. I actually feel guilty because I have this whole regimen of how I study a new work, and it takes months and months, and then it's ready. And now when I bring out something off the shelf, it takes me a day or 2, and it's like, I'm missing something. I'm used to the months it takes to get back to speed. So that's the one advantage of getting older. But drill down a little bit deeper. What does knowing the score really mean?
Well, if you listen to other people's performances of a score, you listen to the things that leap out to your ear. When you know the score, you know what's behind the surface. You know what's all the way down to the base level of the score, and you know what the composer wrote in the score. And so that's what we need to know. And it there's no app for that. You have to know. You have to read what the composer wrote and kind of understand where he was coming from, or she, and know the score.
Yeah. Do you still get anxiety nightmares every once in a while that, you're conducting in front of an orchestra, with no pants, or, or a stupid question like, hey, I'm playing a B flat trumpet and I got this part in F and I don't know which way to go, Maestro. What do I do?
Absolutely. I'm good for the anxiety nightmares. But it is such a blessing to return to pieces, that we've done before. You're right about that. And, in one of my groups in Newport, we set out in the fall of 2007 together. And so I said, we went 10 years without repeating a piece on a classical program. And that was good for all of us, but really good for me, because I was, really learning a lot of pieces. Now I'm going to be a little more relaxed about that after 10 years. But, we really broadened the repertoire there, and I think we should always be seeking. So that was a lot of fun for all of us.
I am worried about losing the fire in the belly if you're just relying on the stuff you've done before. It's so important to keep your skills sharp. Well, we're coming up to the end so Adam, stick around because I want to say goodbye to you off the air, and hopefully Ed and the operations team are listening in, because I'm about to sign off. I want to thank you all for tuning in today and listening to Adam and me become complete and total jackasses. Tune in next week. My guest is going to be concert violinist Brian Lewis, who played with us a couple of times and is a great guy. I haven't spoken to him probably for about a year, so I'll see what's going on in his life. So make sure you join us then. So Adam, thank you so much and say hello to my audience. Say hi, and tell them how great I am.
Yeah, Tim's joking, but I'm not. You are really fortunate to have Tim Hankiewicz at Cedar Rapids, and so congratulations to you. And I congratulate you on your return to the stage, and let's hope that's this fall or this summer.
Absolutely. And Jill will write you a very sizable check for saying that's something so nice. Thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, join us this time next week. Until then, we'll see you later. Cheers.